Hello, everyone. We're doing something a little different tonight. So at about 6:30 tonight, and I don't know why my stream on Rockfin doesn't seem to be working right now. That's all right. I should be live on Odyssey. I should be live on Rumble. I'm definitely live on YouTube, so that's probably good enough for me for the moment. Guys, we're doing something a little bit different tonight. We are watching a Libertarian drama stream, which is a Judicial Committee hearing for the Libertarian Party in Massachusetts. There's drama going on, and because everyone else that normally streams these things seems to be otherwise occupied. I mean, what to forgive Karen Ann Harlos for a second, she's actually involved in the meeting, so she can't stream it live. So I have been anointed to run the stream for tonight, and that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to look like I'm frozen for a second. You should still be able to hear my voice. Hang on. My computer decided to readjust itself, so I had to fix that. But I wanted to go live a little early. I know I was not scheduled to go live at this time. The Judicial Committee hearing is not scheduled to start for another 25 minutes or so. I wanted to go live a little bit early because what I want to do is play Karen Ann Harlos's stream from last night to get everyone caught up on what is going on. So this is basically like the pregame. All right, we aren't started yet with the Judicial Committee meeting. We are pre-gaming right now. And I'm just going to bring up the stream for that while we are waiting for this to get started. And we're going to thank the queen herself, our pink-haired goddess, Karen Ann Harlos, for doing this stream last night where she was working to bring everyone up to speed on what precisely was going on with the Libertarian Party and why there is a Judicial Committee hearing tonight. And I know a lot of my normal viewers, you don't watch all the Libertarian stuff. So I actually found this stream to be really helpful. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click play and we're going to get started and we're going to get a little update. And sometimes Karen Ann, as much as I love her, can ramble around a little bit and talk about things that aren't related to the topic. So when she does that, I will try to fast forward so we can all find out what happened in time for the Judicial Committee hearing tonight. Without further ado, our goddess, Karen Ann. Let me know if you guys can hear the sound and if that's coming through okay. Oh, you guys can't hear? Low volume? Okay, hang on. Okay, so I have a hard time adjusting the volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my volume down and you guys are going to turn your volume up. Okay? Or hang on, maybe I can try this another way. Hang on. Let me do this. Let me try something else real quick. And we're going to have to, if this works, we're going to have to actually switch over. Oh, I know what's going on. Hang on. Had to fancy. We're going to have to switch this over. Okay, let me know if this is any better. Oh, you want to know why? Wait, I know what's going on. I fucked up. I screwed up. Hang on. We're going to try one more time. Okay, hang on. Now I see the little sound thinger.
I'm not at my best today. The background is... Actually, the background is my removal, believe it or not. It does really go all the way back to that as a waterfall. But my removal set up a culture in the party where people could start saying, oh, we need a code of conduct where we can remove people and say words are violence. If you say a word I don't like, it's as if you pulled a gun on me type of thing. Let me remove that Liberty Unmasked. I didn't mean to keep that up there the whole time. So what the LNC did with me kind of set up permission for people to start behaving that way. And the board in Massachusetts at the time was chaired by Ashley Shade. And I'm only doing that for identification. I'm not laying any of this at the feet of any one specific person. I'm just doing this to try to help people identify the players. They decided they were going to pass a very authoritarian, or try to pass a very authoritarian code of conduct. That included things like you can't criticize the board, or you can't criticize other libertarians. And already, like, you can see the problems. And it was going to be very selectively, applied. But it was a very alarming turn of events. And they were going to stick it into the bylaws. And at that time, a member had already been expelled from Massachusetts. The very, very mean bird. Very mean bird. Hold on. To the gulag with the mean bird. Okay, back. So at the time, Rothbardian on Twitter had already been expelled from the Massachusetts party. Part of the reason for her expulsion was she allegedly violated the NAP through words by saying she was going to, on social media, troll the state committee. They expelled her
on premiercollectibles.com soon and in my locals.
That was a violation of the NAP.
And thank you.
Which is ridiculous. No matter what you think about trolling, it's not a violation of the NAP. So members were watching this going on. So they didn't need to guess how this code of conduct would be applied. They already had a real life example of it with the very mean bird. Who, by the way, just for reference sake, I ended up staying in the mean bird's nest when I visited Massachusetts back in December. And I don't know how public her name is, so that's why I'm just using Rothbardian and mean bird and all of that, also for the lulz. But we're talking about the most adorable, tiny woman. Like, really? You were threatened by her? Her words hurt you? I mean, really ridiculous. And by the way, an immigrant. So I guess in the oppression Olympics, saying you're going to troll takes away your privileged status of being like a literal immigrant, okay? And had a vagina. Those are two bingo boxes on the oppression scorecard. I don't know, what else she may have on the oppression scorecard. But it was just ridiculous. If you've ever met her, she's a sweetheart. Like, listen, we're talking not about like me or Dave Casey, who everyone knows are assholes. Joke, Dave. It's a joke. This joke will live forever. Hopefully Dave's in the stream. Because I always find it funny, like when I'm watching a show and the host mentions me, I'm like, well, oh yes. And she's Jewish as well. So yeah, they expelled an immigrant Jewish woman for saying she was going to troll on Twitter. Pardon me, but that's kind of what Twitter is for. Anyway, so that's the backdrop for this code of conduct. Members did not need to guess how it would be applied. They had a real life example. And they went from like 0 to expulsion. Okay? So members knew that those who were not friends with the state committee, or who said things that the state committee didn't like, were going to be targeted for expulsion. That was not an unreasonable paranoid fear. They already had a real life example. So, under the Massachusetts, which we'll just call LAMA for now, and when we're distinguishing between, well, we'll get there. Let's just say llama for now. Under the llama constitution, there is a right of members to call a special convention, as long as there's certain requirements, a certain number of dues-paying members' signatures have to be affixed, and an agenda has to be submitted with the request for the special convention. And according to the llama constitution, the state committee then must call the special convention. That's not a may. It's a must. It's not optional. Because members saw the writing on the wall, they they petitioned for a special convention in order to have a recall election of the state committee. Members at the special convention could have said, we're fine with the state committee, and reelected them all. The state committee lost their ever-loving shit when they got this petition. And they tried all kinds of ways to avoid it. First, trying to redefine membership, then claiming the agenda was out of order, which I'm not even going to argue about. Let's pretend they even had a point. They couldn't just unilaterally declare that at a state committee meeting. They would have had to have called the special convention, then declared the agenda out of order, and allowed the members to appeal the ruling of the chair. That's a whole other procedural thing, just letting you know. But finally, they decided on the perfect solution, the libertarian solution. They're like, these 47 people, by the way, signed this petition. They said, you know what?
It's true.
We're just going to expel them all from the party in one motion for signing a petition.
Objection, speculative.
I wish I were exaggerating, because I'm a very dramatic person. I can exaggerate with the best of them. So that's why I always have to tell you guys, I really am not exaggerating here. And if you go listen, because there's been already some LNC meetings about this topic, and you listen to Chris Crawford's own words, it's quite chilling. And she basically admitted that it was a dragnet approach because they wanted to throw out everyone in Massachusetts from the state party that was a Mises Caucus member. That was their ultimate goal. And Chris Crawford actually said, I should have gotten the sound bite here. Well, why did you just expel these 47 signatories? She goes, well, it isn't as if the Mises Caucus was going to give us their membership list. And like she said this, like this was a reasonable, sane thing. And as if it should just be like, well, obviously, derp. My God. So they admit it. They admit that this was because they didn't like a particular point of view, not for any particular breaking of any rules, and pre-crime. Let's just pretend that the Mises Caucus is the boogeyman everyone says. No libertarian should think that merely being a member of a group and not having proactively done anything, even if you think that group is terrible, is cause for expulsion. This is pre-crime. It is so dystopian craziness. And as I said, you know, I am a connoisseur of party history. I can't claim to be an expert. I don't think I'll ever be an expert. But I do study a lot of it. And this is one of the worst. This is worse than my expulsion, which I have obviously a lot of feels about. And for me to say that, I hope that strikes home to you guys. Like, this was even more tyrannical. than my expulsion, because at least my expulsion was just me, and they could point to specific words I personally said they didn't like. Now, expelling people over words, that's not libertarian.
No, she's fabulous, and I don't want to see anyone saying anything against Karen Ann. She is a queen. Fabulous.
But to expel 47 people for merely signing a recall petition, which libertarians do in government, like local government, all the time. So I wonder if they would be okay with the United States government deporting people who were trying to replace government officials, because that's the analogy. Of course, it doesn't walk on all fours. Mr. Literal is, I know Mr. Pedantry's out there going, but actually.
Objection, speculative.
That is the analogy to what happened. So that's brought you kind of not as rapidly as I'd like up to speed. So these 47 members are expelled in one secret motion that they were not given notice of. And they still don't even know the specific charges against them individually, because there's never been any individual charges. Were expelled from the party in January, I believe. And that's how the state committee got away with not having the convention. However, JJ brought up an important point that we can argue in the future to the Judicial Committee. Let's pretend the expulsions were valid. They still would have to call the special convention, because those people were validly members at the time the petition was signed and presented to the state committee. A later expulsion.
All good, average person. You're good.
That. Oopsie. That's a whole other thing. Like, these people are not. I try to just stick to issues and say, that when people like have a weird point of view on a certain political issue, I go, oh, that idea is not libertarian. I very rarely am going to say what I'm saying now. It's a rare thing for me to say. I hope it has weight then when I say it. The board at that time that expelled 47 people for merely signing a petition are not libertarians by any stretch of the imagination. And one of them have already proven that by going to the Democrat Party, where they belong. I don't know where the rest of them belong, but certainly not in leadership of a libertarian party. And by the way, I'd like to address the Rage Quit bingo card.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. The Rage Quit bingo card is awesome.
That is
it's not about what we're doing tonight, though.
Sure. And
for those of you who don't watch libertarian stuff normally, this is Karen Ann Harlos. Karen Ann Harlos is a queen. Karen Ann Harlos defended the LPNH when no one else did. We love her. We will show nothing but respect and admiration for her. She is one of the good guys. I don't know. She's definitely, I don't know if she would call herself pro Mises Caucus, but I think she's anti-nonsense and shenanigans. So that kind of has to make her pro Mises Caucus in the current environment. But I know a lot of you guys don't watch libertarian drama stuff, so this might be new to you, but she's fabulous.
I was retained as parliamentarian to represent specifically one of the purged members who, I don't even know how to word this. So my specific client has been Brody.
She does consider herself a member now.
But with Brody's permission, I've been assisting the entire group of 47, with Brody kind of being like the spokesperson, at least with me, on that. So that's how I got involved. And in order to try to resolve this, I wrote on behalf of Brody and other purged members, several letters with opinions, parliamentary opinions, to the state committee. And they ignored them. I mean, at least when I was representing Tyler in New Mexico and wrote their board about their illegal convention in January, at least I got a response. I mean, it was a basically go pound sand, we're not going to talk to you response, but at least it was a response. They just completely ignored it in Massachusetts and then went on a social media smear campaign against these 47 people. So it wasn't enough to just expel them. They then had to just completely defame them entirely on social media. Now, to answer the question that might be on some people's minds, no, not everybody who signed this petition was a member of the Mises Caucus. There is such a thing as just your average, everyday concerned member who didn't like the direction the board was going in and maybe would have even voted to retain the board. They just felt that the issues were important enough that members deserved to decide for themselves.
The people they expelled included 2 board members.
Some people would know in chat how many were Mises, how many weren't. I don't know. I just know that they weren't all Mises, but they were all just purged. There were multiple attempts to resolve this. Multiple attempts. And in chat, Paul said it was about 50-50 Mises, non-Mises. Obviously, just a guesstimate. The 47 purged members made multiple good faith attempts to try to resolve this. All they wanted was their special convention, which they were entitled to have under the Constitution. They got in touch with the LNC to ask for the LNC's assistance in, at a minimum, advertising this special convention. Because at this point, the 47 expelled people weren't saying that the state committee wasn't the state committee.
This is basically right. Yeah, this is right.
They were still the state committee because the special convention hadn't happened yet. Let's try to speed things up a little bit. So the LNC declined to help. They did their hemming and hawing. Multiple of them, I don't know if this was on the list or on social media. Anyone who knows can say in chat, express support for what Massachusetts had done. So then we came up to the date of the special convention, which I believe was February 13th, close to that. And because they wanted as many people to know about this convention and come to it and have a voice, including the current state committee, everyone who was a Massachusetts member was invited. They had their convention and they moved to adjourn to February 26th in order to give more time to get the word out more. And also to continue to try to resolve the issue with the state committee and to ask for assistance from the LNC, of which they basically got too bad, so sad from the LNC. The state convention, the special member convention went forward. You know, the 2 segments of it. A new board was elected. One of the first acts now is where we'll have to distinguish between the 2 groups. And even though I know Ashley Shade has since resigned, that's a whole, we're not going to get into all of that. Just for simplicity's sake, we're going to call the old state committee the Shade Board.
The Shades.
And we're going to call the new board elected at the special convention the Cordio Board for Andrew Cordio. one of the first things the Cordio board did was set the date for the annual convention for regular elections. So this new board that was just elected at a special member convention immediately set the date for potentially their own ousting isn't the word I want to use, but their own own replacement.
Hang on. Okay.
Because they just set the annual convention like it was.
Guys, they just let me into the Zoom. So basically what happened is they tried. Hang on. Let me bring this up. I got to change my settings. Shit. I thought we'd get through more than that. Sorry, guys.
Okay. I see some people still in the waiting room.
Hang on. I'll give an update if I just want to get this up first and make sure everything's working. And just confirm for me if you guys can hear the sound. The chat is disabled, of course, because it always is. So basically what happened
Okay, I figure we'll have some people in late, and I want to run
sound?
this on time. By my clock, it is 5:32 Central or 6:32 Eastern. Is that what you have, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, okay. So basically the Massachusetts
that is what I have.
Party appealed to the LNC.
Well, as you continue
the chair
to
of the party made a bullshit
I think
decision.
I will go ahead
and that bullshit decision is what is being discussed tonight. But I guess we need to listen in
about 1 minute.
Yeah, this is live. This is the Judicial Committee hearing on what we were just watching. Yeah, okay, so they're putting it. So basically, the chair of the LNC decided to do nothing in this particular case because she's a heinous bitch. And the members in Massachusetts basically petitioned to appeal the ruling of the chair. And so what this is the Judicial Committee hearing, and please anyone in the chat correct me if I get this wrong. This is the Judicial Committee hearing for the Libertarian Party that is having a hearing on whether or not the chair's ruling
we're giving
should be
everyone a chance.
So it's like a really narrow question tonight, but it'll probably veer into like other drama
and
as well.
I see somebody with their hand up. NH
so this is like a formal Judicial Committee hearing.
Do you have a question?
Sadly, I hear Vermin has recused himself, and I was looking forward to his wig because he wears like a legit white. Vermin Supreme wears a legit white wig to these things when he's. Well, I guess he's there. I mean, he's there. I want him to turn on his camera. Vermin, turn on your camera so we can see the wig.
Okay, I think maybe he put his hand down.
Yeah, this isn't technically like a spy stream because this is a public
your
thing.
microphone is unmuted. Did you have a question?
Yes, like a George Washington wig. Yes, that's exactly right.
The participants window is indicating that NH Free Stater does not in fact have a microphone connected. So that may be the difficulty in responding.
Okay. All right, well, I think it's time to go ahead and get started.
And Madam Chair, I want to make sure you notice the message from Judge Vermin Supreme in the chat.
I did notice that, yes. And it's to everyone. So everyone, if you open your chat window, you can see what Judge Vermin Supreme
has recused himself because he's in
Okay.
Massachusetts.
So by my clock, it is 5 minutes after our appointed hour. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and explain how we're handling everything today. So we basically have three groups involved: the appellant, the LNC, who is the respondent and interested party, the MALP. And the way we're going to be conducting this is that these three parties, in the order that I named, will have the opportunity to give an opening statement. They don't have to give an opening statement, but they can. They will have 15 minutes to give an opening statement and a closing statement. And the closing statement will be in the reverse order of the opening statements. So it would probably be a really good idea for everyone to keep some of that time for a closing statement, because that's when you can, refute something someone else has said or add to it. So it would be a good idea not to take any more time than you absolutely need to on the front end. After we have the opening statement by the three parties, we will then have questions by the JC. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to call on the individual members of the JC to ask one question, and then I'll move on to the next JC member. And when their questions are exhausted, if I still have questions, then I will ask my questions. And then we'll go into the rebuttal phase. Now, I know many of you are here as spectators, and as spectators, you really don't get the opportunity to say anything at the hearing. But of course, you will have the recording if you want to refer to it, and you can always, afterwards, if you wish, give an amicus brief. And we generally allow 1 week from the time that we have this hearing for the amicus briefs. So we're going to allow amicus briefs, I'll just make it easy and say till 11:59 p.m. next Thursday. It gives you a little more time. And hopefully, if you have them, you'll get them in as early as possible so that we're not getting 40 plus at the last minute, which we did get, I think, 40 in one of the cases. So if you can, get them in early. Okay, so that's basically how we're handling things. So for the first 15 minutes, we will be hearing from the appellant. I know there are more than one parties that the appellant is going to let speak. So I am going to leave it up to you to go ahead and make sure the appropriate person is speaking. You can see a clock up there under Tyler Harris's name, and that will be your clock, and the clock will change as we call on other people. I'm going to ask before we get started, though, if the JC members have anything else that they think I should be saying, and if so, to go ahead and make a remark. Okay, sounds like I covered everything. So I'm going to ask the appellant to go ahead and start with their case.
Tyler, I think you've unmuted me, but I believe Andrew is speaking first.
I have unmuted both of you so that you have the flexibility to divide it as you can. Andrew, are you, you're showing unmuted on my end. Are you able to be heard?
Every damn time. Every time. Every time this happens. No one knows how microphones work.
Brody Elwood, I see that you're unmuted. Are you the one who's going to start, or is someone else?
No, Andrew Cordio was is supposed to start for us. I see he's on. I have just spoken to him, so let me see what is happening.
Okay.
I can sit here and knit all night until they figure out how microphones work. Jeez. Yeah, exactly. Working from home for 2 years and no one knows how to use Zoom. Where were all of you? Every goddamn time. Well, Victor brought me a beer anyway, so at least I have that.
So Andrew says he is having technical difficulties right now. Just bear with me 1 minute.
I'm really disappointed no one has their camera on. Usually that's one of the most fun aspects of these. So interesting thing about the Libertarians is they do everything publicly. Everything, well, not everything, but like a lot of stuff. They have a public email list. All their meetings are public on Zoom. So it might seem like we're doing spy stream right now, but we're really not. Because it's all they give out the link. Anyone can log into this Zoom and watch this meeting if they want to, which is actually kind of cool. I'm drinking a Guinness just because Victor went to the gas station, and that is the highlight of gas station beer. It's not bad though. I don't mind Guinness. It's fine. It is a fine option when there is not a craft beer available. I gotta find a stream for happy hour tomorrow. God, I cannot believe tomorrow's Friday. Holy shit. My whole internal clock is thrown off because I was supposed to get a tattoo today and my artist ended up being sick.
Okay, I just called him on the phone and he's gonna dial in on a different count. Tyler, if you could let Jessica McLaughlin in just a second.
You know, I mean, for as much of a shit show as the Libertarian Party is, it is actually kind of refreshing that at least it's a transparent shit show. The Republican Party is just as much of a shit show, but they do it behind the scenes. Oh!
We can hear you.
All right, you guys can hear me now? Okay, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just for our opening statement, I'm going to keep it very, very brief, especially now. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you for handling all of this. I'm hoping we can just resolve the issues. I'm very confident that we followed all of our steps correctly. This isn't done for political purposes or anything like that. We just want to be represented the way that we should be represented here in the state. And yeah, with that, I'll let you guys move along.
Okay, thank you. Next up, unless there's somebody else of the group, the appellant group that's wanting to speak. I don't know if you intend to have more speaking.
Probably say more than that.
No, I think I'm going to handle most of it.
Okay.
That's it?
Just so I'm clear. Okay, so the LNC is up next.
I'm not sure that was the wisest move, but okay.
Thank you, Dr. Brewitt. This is Oliver Hall. I am counsel to the LNC, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the LNC for purposes of this this hearing. Although the chair, Whitney Bilia, is here as well and may perhaps find it appropriate to jump in at some point.
No, that was just Massachusetts.
And,
Massachusetts was basically like,
Ms.
we hope this gets
Bilia,
resolved.
if you do, please feel free at any time.
I don't think that was a good idea.
As the committee knows, this matter is an appeal from a ruling of the chair that a resolution relating to the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts was out of order. The only issue before the committee is whether the chair's ruling should be upheld. As I will explain, the Judicial Committee should uphold the chair's ruling for two reasons. First, it doesn't contravene any bylaw. And second, the LNC doesn't have authority to take the action that the resolution contemplates, and therefore the chair properly ruled it out of order. Before turning to discussion of those reasons, it's important to address the basis for the committee's jurisdiction over this matter. First of all, the Judicial Committee is not a committee of general jurisdiction. It is an appellate body with limited jurisdiction. As bylaw 8.2 states, the subject matter jurisdiction of the Judicial Committee is limited to consideration of only those matters expressly identified as follows. And then it lists a number of bases for this committee to exercise jurisdiction. Now, the bylaws could have stated that the Judicial Committee has general jurisdiction to hear any grievance and to impose any remedy, but they do not. They expressly limit the JC's jurisdiction to the matters enumerated under bylaw 8.2. So turning to the two bases that the petitioners invoke for the Judicial Committee to invoke jurisdiction here. The first is bylaw 8.2a, matters involving suspension of a state affiliate. The LNC's position is that this provision 8.2a is plainly inapplicable. The LNC has not suspended a state affiliate. In fact, it hasn't taken any action with respect to this matter. So there has simply been no disaffiliation of a state party. The petitioners, I'm calling them petitioners, I guess the term that we're using is appellants. The appellants claim that jurisdiction lies under bylaw 8.2a anyway, because the LNC has constructively disaffiliated the Massachusetts State Party. Again, the LNC has done nothing with respect to this matter. It has not taken any action. And even if it had, the bylaws don't recognize any concept such as constructive disaffiliation. Even if the bylaws did recognize that, the LNC has not actually done anything that would constitute constructive disaffiliation. So the second basis for the appellants to assert jurisdiction here is under bylaw 8.2d, which involves the voiding of LNC decisions. The LNC doesn't dispute that the chair's ruling is a decision for purposes of this provision. However, under bylaw 8.2d, bylaw 7.12 is cited. Bylaw 7.12 limits the scope of the JC's review in this matter to determining whether an LNC decision contravenes any bylaw. Only then may the JC veto that decision. So again, the only issue before the JC and the only issue over which the JC has jurisdiction is whether the chair's ruling the resolution out of order contravenes any bylaw. It doesn't. In fact, the appellants themselves do not assert that the chair's ruling contravenes any bylaw, nor could they. The LNC has taken no action in this matter, and all of its past actions relating to the LAMA have been consistent with the bylaws. It recognized LAMA as a state affiliate, and its decision not to intervene here is in fact consistent with bylaw 5.5, which states that a state affiliate's autonomy, quote, shall not be abridged, unquote, by the LNC except as provided by these bylaws. So the decision of the LNC not to intervene in this matter was appropriate. It is consistent with the express mandate of bylaw 5.5 that the LNC not abridge the autonomy of state affiliates. By contrast, adoption of the resolution would require actual disaffiliation of the LAMA State Committee, which the LNC has heretofore previously recognized. The bylaws do not permit the LNC to recognize more than one state affiliate. Therefore, if it adopted this resolution recognizing a new entity as the state affiliate, it would necessarily have to disaffiliate with the one that is currently recognized. There couldn't be any greater interference with a state affiliate's autonomy than that. Because the chair's ruling doesn't contravene any bylaw, it should be upheld on that ground alone. There's simply no basis for the JC to veto that ruling under bylaw 7.12. And in fact, my understanding is that the JC just dismissed a petition submitted by George Phillies on that very basis, that the LNC had not contravened any bylaw. The second reason that the chair's ruling should be upheld is that it properly ruled the resolution out of order because the LNC doesn't have authority to take the action that the resolution contemplates. There's no question that the LNC has the power to revoke the status of any affiliate party for cause by a vote of 3/4 of the entire national committee. That's under bylaws 5.6. And cause for such revocation might even include the LNC's conclusion that an affiliate had violated its own constitution or bylaws, which is the allegation here. But that's not what the resolution seeks to accomplish. Instead, it seeks to, in fact, disaffiliate the existing LAMA State Committee without taking a 3/4 vote of the entire national committee and without specifying cause as required under LP bylaw 5.6. The appellants don't cite any authority for the LNC to take that action, and with good reason. Again, LP bylaw 5.5 expressly states that the LNC may not abridge an affiliate's autonomy except as provided by these bylaws. Because the appellants do not and cannot cite any LP bylaw that authorizes the LNC to take this action, their appeal should be denied on that ground as well. Last, I wanted to point out that the LNC does have authority to take appropriate action to address the appellant's concerns in this matter without exceeding its authority under the LP bylaws. The appellants have stated that the resolution and the action that the LNC is supposed to take thereunder is necessary because otherwise the LNC might be giving data services and directing potential members and potential donors to an entity that is not the rightful leadership of the Massachusetts State Party. That may be a legitimate concern, but the LNC can address that simply by passing a resolution to stop sharing those assets and resources until the state affiliate sorts out this problem. And in fact, that sort of action would not only be consistent with and within the authorities granted to the LNC under the bylaws, but it might also give the state affiliate an appropriate incentive to resolve this matter of its own accord. Adoption of this resolution, by contrast, would set a dangerous precedent. It would establish the LNC as the ultimate arbiter of any internecine dispute within state affiliates, including disputes over whether they've complied with their own constitutions and bylaws, notwithstanding the lack of any apparent authority for the LNC to wield that power. I've represented the Libertarian Party for long enough to know that I think it's a pretty good bet that the members would be very surprised and disturbed to find that the LNC has taken it upon itself to determine in all matters whether a state affiliate is complying with its own constitution and bylaws. So for all of these reasons, the chair's ruling was that the resolution was out of order, was proper, it should be upheld. And with that, I'll reserve my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Okay, we're moving on to interested parties. That would be the I guess the MALP, and who is going to speak for them?
I will. Good evening. We appear to agree with much of the LNC's opening statement, so I can cut mine short. We believe that the Judicial Committee lacks jurisdiction to hear this appeal, but if the committee nevertheless decides this matter, we believe that any ruling should be strictly limited to the question of whether to sustain or overturn the ruling of the chair. And towards that end, we believe the only reasonable option is to sustain the ruling that the motion in question was out of order. A motion was made, but ruled out of order. The procedure for appealing the ruling was exhausted pursuant to our bylaws and Robert's Rule of Order. No vote on the issue of suspending an affiliate was ever conducted. The JC also lacks jurisdiction of procedural matters generally. The subject matter jurisdiction of the JC is expressly limited to substantive matters listed in the bylaws, Article 8, Section 2. Appealing a vote to sustain the ruling of the chair is a procedural matter and is not included in the list of things that may be appealed to the JC. Therefore, if the Judicial Committee decides as jurisdiction, it must rule for us, the respondents. The only action taken by the entire LNC that the JC could conceivably address is the vote to sustain the ruling of the chair that the main motion was out of order. Therefore, the only remedy it can provide is to overturn that ruling. Any further action would be beyond the scope of the appeal and therefore unwarranted judicial activism. The chair ruled that the main motion was out of order because it violated Article 5, Section 5, relating to affiliate autonomy. Overturning the ruling of the chair would place the main motion back on the floor for debate, where it would still be out of order due to violating Article 5, Section 6, relating to suspensions within 6 months prior to a regular convention. Thus, the only remedy the JC can issue would provide no relief to the petitioners. since I have seen some others reference the Delaware situation, that is different because that appeal was of an actual vote taken by the LNC. Here, there was no vote taken. The Judicial Committee should limit its focus strictly to the procedural matter, not the underlying substance of the motion. Additionally, that case happened more than 6 months prior to regular convention and therefore ran no risk of violating Article 5, Section 6. On the point of constructive disaffiliation, the bylaws do not recognize such a concept, and even if they did, such quote unquote disaffiliation would still have happened within 6 months of a regular convention. And that is my opening statement. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Okay, now we have had opening statements by all three of the parties. So we are now going to questions from the JC. And according to what I am seeing on my screen, Ms. Matson is the first one in the queue. So Ms. Matson, go ahead and direct your question to the party of your choice.
Okay, my first question is rather important. It's going to be addressed to the appellants. And the reason for my question is in very preliminary JC chatter about the case, it seems the appeal was not written clearly enough for all JC members to have the same understanding of what is being requested of us. And I'll tell you why, because there's two sections on page 1 and 7 that list, requested relief, and that's all about the Bowen resolution and the LNC's vote to sustain the chair's ruling. But there are very large other sections, one on page 1 and 3, spanning pages 6 and 7, which all talk about constructive disaffiliation. So is the constructive disaffiliation talk just about gaining standing for us to rule about the resolution and it being ruled out of order, et cetera? Or are you raising that as a separate issue? So here's the question. I'll make it simple. Are you asking the JC to overturn an LNC vote, to rule on constructive disaffiliation, or both?
Am I unmuted? I'm sorry.
Yes, you're unmuted.
Okay. So to answer your question, I believe the point of tonight's hearing is just to get a resolution on the LNC's ruling that they're not going to hear this. I believe that we're very much entitled for this case to be heard. It seems for me, from what I took from the LNC's ruling, is that there's no standing for us here, and I can imagine there being any more standing. So I would like this to move forward. I mean, just to clarify, I'm looking in the chat here. We weren't ever looking to disaffiliate Llama and start a new organization. We were replacing the leadership of our organization, and the old leaders are refusing to abide by our own state bylaws. So we're just looking for other adults in the room here to, help us adjudicate this.
And may I ask that Karen Ann Harlos, my parliamentarian, clarify what we intended by this appeal. She helped us prepare this appeal.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Judicial Committee, and I'm sorry for my raspy voice. I had a actually severe case of COVID, and I thank Ms. Matson for her question. And in order to answer it, it is both for, it's primarily for standing. We believe that the refusal to entertain the motion is in fact a constructive disaffiliation, in the same way that the refusal to entertain the motion, I believe it was on November 23rd, though it wasn't through a ruling of the chair, but it was a refusal to recognize the rightful board of Delaware. So we believed it was analogous. However, we also did understand that the Judicial Committee may not find that standing persuasive. Thus, this was also filed as a member appeal. So the relief requested is to overturn the sustainment of the ruling of the chair. The portions on constructive disaffiliation were to establish the standing of what I will call the Cordio board, but to establish a dual path for standing.
Okay, that made sense. Thank you.
Are you complete, Ms. Mattson?
With my first question, yes, I'll wait my
Okay.
turn again.
Okay, then we move on to, is it Councilman Turney? I'm not quite sure what the proper term is.
Jim, you can call me Jim. I have no question at this time, but thanks for asking.
Okay, then I will move on to Dr. Moulton.
I have no question at this time.
Okay, then I will move on to D. Frank Robinson. Okay, I see he said no questions in the chat. So let me move on to Mad Vermin Supreme.
My understanding is recused himself.
Right.
Yes, well, if he, okay, I just wanted to make sure he had a chance to ask questions. Okay.
I have recused myself from this. Thank you.
Okay, and you won't have questions then. Okay, I won't call
That would
on
not be appropriate, having recused myself. Yes.
Okay, all righty. Okay, Mr. Arnold.
Well, I don't have any further questions. I don't have any questions. Miss Mattson's question has answered everything I needed. Thank you.
Okay. And I believe I have covered all of the JC individuals, so I'm going to go back to Miss Mattson.
Okay, I have, maybe I can knock out 3 quick, just factual questions, which shouldn't take long. Let's do the first of them, the January 10th meeting of the Massachusetts State Committee. Was it a regular meeting or a special state committee meeting? The minutes were not clear on that point.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mattson, who are you addressing the question to so I know which microphone to?
Oh, sure. I guess this would be for the side being represented by Mr. Newhall.
Hello. It was a regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. I hope that would be an easy answer. And then, so for that meeting on January 10th, my second question is, what notice was given for that meeting and to whom? Was it just, what was the notice? Was it given to board members? Was it given to the party in general?
It was given to the party in general. It was at the regular scheduled time of all of our monthly meetings.
Okay. And then my last simple question is regarding the 47 or 46, I guess that number's a little bit in dispute. The number of expel members from the January 10th meeting we don't have a list of the signers of that petition. We have the text of the petition. And did that list of expel members include people who were chosen as board members at the special convention that I understand you don't recognize it, but.
It is my understanding that yes, it does include those people.
Okay. Okay, I thought those would be quick so that I could run through them. I do have, Madam Chair, 3 more questions, but I don't know if you want to do a rotate through the other JC members first.
Let me ask if any of the other JC members have questions they would like to ask at this time.
I do not, Tom Arnold.
I don't either. Alicia's doing a good job.
Okay. Does anyone?
I have no questions right now. I may have questions in the future, but Alicia can keep rolling.
Okay.
Deep right. No questions.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you are on again, Ms. Matson.
All right. It's a relatively easy one. So also for the side represented by Mr. Newhall, the petition that was received calling for a special convention, I understand that the subject matter is disputed, and I get that, but my question is regarding the signers of it. Did the number of signers meet the constitutional threshold for a petition?
Excuse me. Are we, I feel as though we're starting to adjudicate whether or not the LLAMA, the Libertarian Association of Massachusetts, is recognized,
decorum,
has settled its bylaws and followed rules of our own state. And my understanding of what Mr. Hall said and the standing which Mr. Newhall represented was that we don't believe that that is within the jurisdiction of the Judicial Committee. And so we do have that information. We have a lot of that information, and we're choosing to work within the state of Massachusetts to solve these challenges.
I realize that's your position. I was just asking a numerical question to establish, what got us here. So, I mean, if you choose not to answer, I will assume that the answer is yes.
I actually do not have the information on hand.
Okay. All right, I have 2 questions left on my list.
Go ahead.
This would also be for Mr. Newhall's side, about how they read their Constitution, Article 2, Section 5, the portion about calling for special conventions. And given that it says that a state committee they can add items to an agenda, but I'll quote this phrase, they may not otherwise change the agenda, end quote. Do you believe it's the case that ruling it out of order is essentially changing the agenda by deleting all the items on the agenda?
That presumes they had a valid agenda to begin with.
I understand that is that's your argument on why it was ruled out of order, but do you believe the effect is to alter the agenda by deletion?
No, my opinion and the opinion of the state committee at the time was that they did not follow protocol and therefore it was invalid.
Okay. My last question is, I'm going to open up to all parties, because none of the briefs that we've received so far have really addressed this issue, and I see it as maybe something writers of that bylaw may not have anticipated. So in the National Party bylaws, Article 5.6, this is the one that says the LNC can't disaffiliate within 6 months prior, and after it describes, how the appeal is done, how the hearing is done, and the JC should issue a ruling within 30 days of a hearing. And then the next phrase says, but in no case less than 90 days prior to a convention. So I guess I want to hear everybody's positions on, you know, how the JC would handle issues within 90 days. You know, if a hypothetical LNC were to take a 3/4 vote to disaffiliate a week prior.
Ms. Mattson, is there an order in which you would like to hear everybody's perspectives on that?
I guess we'd go in the same order as opening statements.
All right, can do.
So Ms. Mattson, go ahead and specify who you want to hear from first.
Okay, so
I understood the order of opening statements.
Okay.
I have it written down. It just takes me a moment to unmute the microphones.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, thank you for your question, Ms. Madsen. Since this is a detailed parliamentary question, I will defer this to Karen and Harless.
Thank you again for the question, Ms. Madsen, and apologies once again for my weak voice. I do find that a very intriguing question. What should the JC do in the hypothetical situation that the LNC, if I'm understanding your question correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, actually had an open disaffiliation vote? I believe the JC would have to rule that as out of order, contrary to that bylaw, which again makes these situations where refusal to recognize proper leadership as a constructive disaffiliation very insidious, because it doesn't make it obvious that they are in fact violating the bylaw by not having a direct vote. And I believe this position is completely consistent with this body's decision just this very year in the Delaware decision. And I believe this was, though not this exact question, the concepts behind this issue were addressed by yourself, Ms. Mattson, in writing the opinion for the Judicial Committee. So the short answer would be, if they had a direct disaffiliation vote, I think, and it was appealed, this Judicial Committee would have to say it is absolutely against that bylaw.
So your argument, if I can sum it up very briefly, would be that it would just be null and void at the moment they did it because of timing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I think I understood your answer. I think next would be Mr. Hall.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Thank you, Ms. Mattson, for your question. I'm looking at the bylaw that you're referencing and the portion of that bylaw. Could you restate the question that you are asking with respect to that language?
Sure. The question is primarily about that phrase that says the JC has to rule within 30 days of a hearing, but in no case less than 90 days prior to the convention. And my question is, you know, in the hypothetical scenario where an LNC a week before the convention took a 3/4 vote to disaffiliate some affiliate, what happens in that case?
I think in that case that the disaffiliation would be invalid because it was within 6 months of a regularly scheduled convention, which is contrary to, I believe, this same bylaw 5.6 or somewhere in section 5 that prohibition exists. So I think the action, yes, would be out of order.
And yeah, I guess the The twist is who says it's out of order. If the JC has constraints on its ruling, there's not even 30 days to rule after. There's not time for a hearing and a ruling and get it all in. So that's the dilemma in this scenario. All right, go ahead.
Sorry, in the hypothetical scenario, that's the dilemma. There's not enough time for the JC to rule.
All right, and then would Mr. Newhall like to weigh in?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to respond to that.
Okay.
I was simply trying to clarify.
It was a question rather than a statement. Okay, go ahead.
I would simply respond that if the LNC undertook a resolution to disaffiliate a state affiliate within the prohibited time period, that would be so clearly a violation of the express prohibition in the bylaws that it would be invalid, and I don't believe it would take long for the JC to adjudicate that matter.
Okay, thanks. And then Mr. Newhall.
I agree with Mr. Hall on this point. I think we're dealing with hypotheticals at this point because the matter before us is a procedural question, and it is clearly out of order per the bylaws.
Okay, Madam Chair, that finishes my list of questions.
Okay. Let me call on any other JC members that have questions.
I have a brief question for I guess the longest running llama group. Is that the Newell, or I forget who's the chair of that one right now. My question concerns Article 4 of the bylaws. The llama held that the petition was out of order because it didn't contain anything on the agenda, supposedly because the state committee could not be selected at a special convention. To do that, it cited Article 4, Section 1, which said each regular convention shall elect, as provided in the bylaws, up to 9 state committee members. My question is, why does that language mean that they can only be selected at a regular state convention and not at a special convention? It seems to be permissive, but the plain language, it doesn't say that it should be only at a regular state convention. And I would also cite Article 4, Section 4, which says all members of state committee shall hold office until the adjournment of the next state convention at which their successors are chosen. That says the next state convention. It does not say the next regular state convention. So if it was intended that state committee members can only be selected at a regular state convention, why doesn't Article 4, Section 4 say the next regular state convention?
I am currently looking over the Constitution bylaws right now.
Yeah, excuse me.
No.
Out of order. You're out of order. Go ahead, Derek.
And in the Constitution, it does explicitly say in Article 4, each regular state convention shall elect up to 9 state committee members. So
right.
the argument is that to change it to be a special convention would require a constitutional amendment.
I'm not sure how I'm out of order because I was listed as one of the speakers
Tara.
for the Libertarian Association of Massachusetts, and the question was directed at us.
Yes.
But again, we are traveling into a space adjudicating our Constitution and our bylaws. And the purpose of the Judicial Committee is to determine the LNC's ruling and not the ruling of the Libertarian Association of Massachusetts. We have members here. We have people working towards resolutions here.
I am going to rule you out of order because, first of all, the question was directed to Mr. Newhall. And secondly, you will have time in the rebuttal, if you wish, to talk about that you feel the JC's questions are out of order, but the JC right now can ask whatever questions that it wants. And I'm going to ask you to please not interrupt again. And if Mr. Newhall wants to defer to you, then, we will hear from you. So, Mr. Newhall, you are.
So yeah, the short version is that the Constitution does explicitly say a regular state convention shall elect the state committee members. And since the agenda did not include an agenda item to amend the Constitution, that was the reasoning. Additionally, Peter Everett is on our current state committee, and he has his hand raised. If he wishes to comment, I would welcome his input.
Tara is the best part of this meeting.
Okay, so you're going to defer to Mr. Everett.
The best and the worst.
Thank you. I think I can offer something helpful. This is Peter Everett. I was not part of the Llama State Committee prior to our recent convention, but I am now. The Llama chair in December ruled that the special convention petition was out of order because the regular convention had already been scheduled and commitments had been made, and also because the Constitution wording was that the regular convention is what elects the state committee. So I think it's just important to mention those two things. But I would reinforce what Ms. DeSisto says, which is, it would be inappropriate I think at this meeting to get into the interpretation of the Llama Constitution and bylaws. We have our own state mechanisms for adjudicating problems in the interpretations of our Constitution and our bylaws.
Does Llama have a judicial committee?
We do not.
What is your way of adjudicating bylaws questions then?
So if the state committee were to rule in a way that was contested by the members, then that could be settled at our convention. The members, the body itself would function as the judicial committee in that case.
Okay. So I just want to clarify the language of Article 4, Section 4 was not addressed by you all. Do you have any reason that doesn't say the next regular state convention if state committee members cannot be elected at special conventions?
I don't have a.
Well, again, we are dealing with hypotheticals. Numerous documents have been presented forward on this to the LNC. This is not the LNC discussion about whether the bylaws were, in order. This is a question of whether or not the Judicial Committee has, standing to change the ruling of the LNC chair.
Thank you. I have a question for, I guess, the other Llama, the special convention Llama.
And before you ask that question, Dr. Moulton, I just wanted to let you know that Brody Elwood has asked if he can comment on the question. Do you want him to?
Certainly.
Okay, go ahead, Brody.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to answer this question directly. No, there is no stipulation in the bylaws that the state committee has to be elected at a regular convention. In fact, I'd like to point you to Article, I believe it is Article 4 of the, sorry, Article 2 of the Lama Constitution, Section 5, that the state committee must organize a state convention. It does not give them power or authority to rule a validly signed petition of the membership. It does not allow them to rule that petition out of order. I would also like to give Karen Ann a brief moment to respond to this question as well. If that's acceptable.
Dr. Moulton, do you want?
Sure. I can hear from her.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Moulton, and I'll be very brief. Mr. Elwood said nearly everything I wish to, but let's assume arguendo that the agenda was out of order. Of course, we do not concede that it was. The time for it to be ruled out of order would have been at the special convention itself for the body that called the special convention. So they would have had an opportunity to overturn the ruling of the chair. It should be patently obvious that a special convention called to recall a board, and then that board ruling it out of order, and then expelling the members who asked for it with no recourse to appeal from any ruling of the chair. To me, it should be very, very obvious on its face that that is what contemplated by the Constitution or by any sense of equity, fair play, or justice.
Thank you. I have none of you really addressed my actual question, but that's okay. I will I have a question for the state committee elected at purportedly elected at the special convention. My question is that you all have claimed as evidence that there was a Region 8, I believe, agreement signed by other state chairs, which included your group and not the other group. The national bylaws allow state affiliates to join together such that their combined membership is 10% or more of the national membership to join a region. If the other group joins up in a regional agreement with other states, which may not be the same states, is that evidence that they are the valid state affiliate? If they join up with, say, Delaware and I don't know what other affiliates I could say. They could join up with California for all I know. Would that be evidence that they are the valid state affiliate?
So
who are you addressing your question to, Dr. Moulton?
I'm addressing to the group that was purportedly elected at the state convention, at the special state convention.
Yeah, so I think just to answer your question, if they joined another region agreement, would that, evidence, would that make them the legitimate? Not necessarily. The reason I think we put it in as evidence is because Region 8 doesn't need us to affiliate. They have their 10% without Massachusetts. They were making, a statement of unity, geographically, that they believe we are the ones that should be recognized here in Massachusetts. So, we appreciate all of them doing that, and I'm proud to get that accomplished.
And if I can interject, to your point, Dr. Moulton, I wouldn't see it as additional evidence, as the historic region that Massachusetts has been in has been New England plus New York and New Jersey. Those states have a close relationship to libertarians, to members in our state, and they decided to affirm that the party that has not purged members is the party that they would like to affiliate with or form a region with.
It's my understanding that that regions do not have to be geographically contiguous. They just need to get 10% of the member, and we've had regions that have states from both coasts in it. So I guess I'm confused at why this was presented as any sort of evidence, because it seemed anyone could say that they've joined with any region, and it's up to whether the National Convention and specifically the National Secretary accepts their paperwork.
Yeah, like I said, just kind of to reiterate, Region 8 doesn't need Massachusetts to meet the 10% criteria, so they were doing this as to show unity, to kind of take a stance and to show the LNC, where they think the moral correct stance would be.
Dr. Bolton,
thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, but Tara DeSisto has raised her hand. Do you want to hear from her?
Yes.
Thank you. So my understanding is that regional agreement is even in dispute, that the chair from New York was not under the impression that he was signing on to support the other faction that has decided to form its own organization, that they wanted to work with everyone in the region who wanted to work towards liberty. And that was what they understood they were signing on to. So I would actually ask if the Judicial Committee chooses to take that into consideration, that they actually have conversations with the state chairs on the topic. I reiterate that this is a Massachusetts challenge, that we continue to ask for the JC to grant our state the autonomy that it deserves. And when it is time, I would like to ask a question.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few more questions, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, I think so. Go ahead.
Okay, this is the question for both groups. So the assets of the party, including the domain names, Facebook, other social media, and so forth. Which group controls those assets that were present as of like 1 year ago? Have those been transferred to the group elected the special convention, or are they still in the possession of use of the group that was elected at the regular convention like a year ago?
Dr. Moulton, would you clarify for me which of those groups you would like to hear from first?
I guess first I would hear from the DeSisto group.
All assets belong to the state party that was in existence a year ago and is still in existence after our regularly scheduled convention last week.
And that includes social media, the domain, bank accounts, and so forth?
Yes.
This is correct.
Thank you. And if the other group could answer, or do they agree with that?
Yeah, we agree. They have everything still. They haven't given us anything.
Yeah, they refused to hand over the assets, having not recognized the special convention on February 26th.
Does Llama have ballot access? Is it recognized currently by the state of Massachusetts?
No, we are not a major party in Massachusetts currently.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Dr. Moulton, just to let you know, there are 3 hands raised.
Okay.
Tara DeSisto, Steve Dincher, and Nolan, no union with, I'm not quite sure what the rest of that is.
If the hands are raised with respect to this question, I'm certainly open to hear from them.
Okay, I assume that that's what, and the LNC chair has also raised her hand. So you can go ahead and pick who you want to hear from first.
I see Tara, and then Steve, and then Nolan, and then Whitney. So let's go in that order. Tara first.
My concern is that you are starting to take questions and statements from the audience, the general public, and not the parties at hand. And I'm very concerned that there are parties outside of Massachusetts speaking in regards to this. I would ask that the Judicial Committee be judicious in identifying who is speaking on behalf of each organization.
Thank you. Your point is well taken. If, in my opinion at least, I can't speak for the rest of the Judicial Committee, if Steve Dincher and Nolan are not representing either of the groups, then I guess I do not need to hear from them on this question. Did Whitney want to speak on this?
Thank you, Dr. Moulton. Yes, that was going to be my concern, is that we all submitted names of people who were going to be speaking for for us as interested parties, and there are people here who were not listed in that. And the question has been raised as to whether or not they're even they're not parties to this anyway, because they're not in the state
Yes, and that's
concerned here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
very good.
Madam Chair, I have no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm, unless Steve Dincher and Nolan are able to get one of the parties to acknowledge them as part of their group, I think we're going to go ahead and move on. So let me ask if any of the other members of the JC committee have further questions. If not, I do have one. And my question is directed to Ms. DeSisto. We've had a lot of back and forth by email about moving the date of the hearing. And one of the points that you made was that there was the possibility of possibly resolving the issue between the two competing state boards, or I guess, obviously they can't both be state boards, but I'm just going to say that for the convenience of trying to ask my question. So I would like to know what happened, any progress on that? Can you speak to that? And then
yes, Dr. Ruitt, I can. So we, as a body, were prepared to have the individuals from the other side show up. We had individuals reach out and express and let them know that they were going to make a motion at the beginning of the meeting to allow for their reinstatement and participation. Not one of them showed up. And so the body continued. We had mailed out motions that were going to be deliberated upon at the meeting. We recalled a former chairman to officiate over the event so that it would not seem biased. And the body ruled not to reinstate all of the members that were removed as a whole. The delegates that participated, registered, paid dues, and were credentialed. We had a very fair discussion about the topic. Maybe I'm biased, but I think, we elected Don Graham, who is a former chairman, who then attended the next day their event to try to seek some resolutions. Christopher Thrasher also attended. We continue dialogue with members who were removed from that from that petition. I think what is official on our side is that the body has determined that we cannot sweep them all back in at the same time. But what we can do is we can create processes for individuals to have reinstatement through our processes, through our new state committee that did not participate. I would also like to mention that I did not vote on January 10th to remove individuals. Although you hear me being very passionate, my passion comes from being a fourth generation Bostonian, and here discussion germane reside here. I think there is a lot of progress to be made. I think we have fresh faces, although the same people leading the petition, who many of them are identified as the Mises Caucus, which I would identify as a super PAC, which is illegal for our party to interact with. These are things that make us very concerned about sweeping individuals back in. We have people that are working towards resolution, and I myself have reached across lines, including making a motion to reinstate a lifetime member of National back into the Libertarian Association of Massachusetts. So I hope that answers your question, Dr. Ruart. And I realize that that I have been very short, but again, I have drank all the Kool-Aid of the Libertarian Party, and I just want my decisions, the decisions that are made, to be left to my state.
Well, I would also like to have an answer for that question from Mr. Cordio, or whoever he wishes to represent his side.
Thank you, Chair. So I haven't been approached by anybody from the other side about, reconciling this. The only negotiations we had, I reached out to their new chair, Don, the other day, and he was adamant, and he's just keeping the stance that our petition was illegitimate, which is unfortunate. And then to touch on the Mises Caucus thing, speaking as the new chair of the state, the reasons why I got started with this had nothing to do with the Mises Caucus. I originally ran for office as a Libertarian in 2017, and the support that I got from the state was let's just, I'll be nice, and it could have been better. So I've been disappointed with the leadership here in the state for some years. Seeing the Mises Caucus, rise up here in the state, quote unquote, is, I think, less to do with what the Mises Caucus is and more to do with the organization of the people behind it. And it's unfortunate that it's come to this point, because it obviously makes the state, look bad, and we could be fighting so many other wars against the state. And we just want to be represented by adequate leadership. And that's really, that was the basis of the petition. That's always been what we've been searching for. And now that we feel that we have it, we just want to be recognized.
If it's all right, Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to your question as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would just like to reply to some of Tara's comments that I felt are not entirely correct. First off, they were charging for business at this convention, which historically Massachusetts has not done. And I am in contact with many of the signers of the petition, and they felt uncomfortable donating money to an organization that had just expelled them just for the simple chance of possibly, maybe getting reinstated by a vote of the people that included the people that had kicked them out. I myself have not received back the dues from when I was supposedly expelled on January 10th. Our convention, rather the convention of the party now chaired by Andrew Cordio, has been open to all. We, I also sit on that state committee. That state committee has recognized that any members of Llama, both Llamas, are welcome to come for free to that business. We would we're the inclusionary party. Actions by the other party include reporting our event pages. Several parties that are friendly to the other llama have banned people from a common libertarian Facebook group that is very useful in getting out the word to libertarians in Massachusetts. They use online censorship to try they used online censorship to try and prevent the word of our convention from getting out. On the point of the Mises Caucus, I'll just speak briefly. To say that it's illegal for a member of a PAC or a member of a caucus to interact with party members or the party in Massachusetts is completely incorrect. I mean, I know Massachusetts isn't the bastion of freedom, but we still have some semblance of freedom of association here. And to Tara's point of reinstating a lifetime member, that lifetime member, I won't say his name unless he wants to remain anonymous, now sits on our state board. He only had one call with Tara and no follow-up on whether or not he actually wanted to be reinstated. Many of us maintain that the actions on January 10th were invalid and that they should be rescinded in whole, that we do not have to come back begging to the very people that kicked us out for our membership to be reinstated. So to answer your question more directly, Mary, we have attempted over the past 4 months to do reconciliation. Our party is open for any of the members to come and participate, whereas their party is exclusionary and really do not want to let back in people who have politically undesirable opinions. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Okay. And Derek Newhall has his hand up, so I'd like to hear from him.
I was going to follow up Tara's statement by pointing out that the person who put forward the motion to reinstate all the expelled members is now our elected chair. The person who seconded it is now our membership director. Both have reached out to the other side. They're both at their convention, and it is completely incorrect that we have not reached out to them. They proposed a negotiation, they backed out. And Anthony Cordio says he ran in Massachusetts, but he never talked to us. We had no idea who this guy is. Regardless of all that, that is not the issue at hand for this meeting. This meeting should be about whether or not to uphold the ruling of the chair that the motion is out of order, which again, we believe is absolutely the case. The LNC agrees that is absolutely the case.
Well, we appreciate your viewpoint, and that is one of the things we'll be discussing at the JC meeting. Justin Costa has had his hand up. Is he affiliated with any of the three groups? Does someone want to claim him and allow him to speak or not? Okay, I think then, let's see. I see that Brody and Tara want to speak again. Mr. Newhall, are you complete?
Yes, although I would like to point out that the Don who has his hand raised, I believe is our state chair.
Okay, I will hear from him then. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody's consideration for this, and I would like to reiterate the point that Derek made. But my name was brought up a couple of times, and there has been some history. But real quickly, I got involved back in early January, and attempted to negotiate between, or to facilitate a negotiation between the previous board, the Llama Committee, and with the Brody's team. I have been, attending their meetings. I've been contacting them individually, been contacting, at the time, the previous state committee. All kinds of attempts have been made to advocate not just for the petitioners, but for everyone who felt like they didn't have a voice. So I did attend the April 23rd Llama Convention, and the body there did decide to start with a new board with a mix of a little old with some new people. A couple of the committee members they elected are there's like 3 former chairs from my time and before. So it's a mixture on the new state committee. There is commitment to do some good things, and as I was before when I was elected chair on the Llama committee, I'm continuing to be a voice for the members who felt like they didn't have their fair say prior to our April 23rd convention. So this is a new board, April 23rd. The body said they wanted, there was a called convention, and they elected a new state committee. So we're moving forward and trying to put things back together and do libertarian things in the state. So
okay, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
I see that Tom Edelum, I hope I'm not mispronouncing the name, has his hand up. Is he associated? Does any of the groups want to have him speak? I see that Mr. Elwood is saying yes, he is. So
yes, I would just like to clarify to your previous question. Justin Costa is a member that was expelled, one of the petitioners that was supposedly expelled. And Thomas Edlund is the current communications director for the Llama that's selected the state board on the 24th.
Okay, well, I think Justin's had his hand up longer, so I'm going to ask for him to go ahead and speak first, and then I'll go to Tom.
Thank you, members of the Judicial Committee, for allowing me to speak. I have been trying to help mend us back together in some way. I had put out to a couple people that were friends with the old board. Maybe we could meld the boards together until the convention we had last weekend. They said no. I have personally asked and basically begged to be allowed back in the Llama, but I have directly asked Tara if I could be back in, and she said I am not on her list. We continue to try to do everything. We have had negotiators sent, and one of our negotiators, when they were sent, was attacked verbally by the previous board. They were called racist because they were there negotiating on our behalf. These behaviors are not good, and the whole foundation of libertarianism and the Libertarian Party, the state party, is about the members. And if we destroy members, we don't have a party. We don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. And Tom Edelum, again, I hope please tell me how to pronounce your name when you speak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, or woman. Edlum is my name, Tom Edlum, and I am the communications director for the new board under Andrew Cordio. Our view is basically this, that the LNC has an obligation to recognize the affiliate. And we had an election on February 26th and elected a new board. And no one on that side the other side has made a claim that we did not have sufficient signatures for the special convention, that they weren't members. I was a member. Actually, I voted for the original state committee back in March of 2021. But I was among the expelled, and they do not want us back. The meeting Saturday, it was a vote of 8 in favor of reinstating us to 15 against, of 47 libertarians, good libertarians. Their position is simply this: 6 of the 9 members of the state committee can expel every single member of Llama, every single libertarian, and the other 3 state committee members. And that's their adjudication of any dispute. And they exercised that on January 10th by expelling almost a quarter of the membership, or at least trying to, and 2 of the state committee members. Fortunately for us, they were a really bad state committee. They were also incompetent in their mendacity because the state constitution requires a member to be expelled by a vote. But their vote only mentioned petitioners and not members, and it was 47 people. So our view is that the LNC was out of order in ruling our petition out of order, and that they're obligated to recognize us as the affiliate. We're the larger group, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, well, I think I've heard enough on my question, and I would like to ask the other JC members if any of them have a question. But before I do, I just want to say what I've said in emails to all the groups, and that is, if you aren't able to somehow negotiate a solution to this, somebody else will dictate it. And if you don't like that solution, what will eventually happen is it will keep getting bumped down the road. For example, if there's still a feud, when you go to the national convention in Reno, it's possible there'll be a credentials battle, and then of course there'll be a new LNC, a new JC. I mean, this could go on for a long time. So if there's any possibility for some kind of compromise to be reached, I think that would be excellent, because then you could take those resources and fight the state instead of each other. Now, that may not have a lot to do with this JC ruling, but I'm going to take my prerogative as chair to encourage that. And now I am going to go and ask my other JC colleagues if they have further questions or anything they'd like to ask.
Madam Chair, I do have a question, if that's okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
This question is for both the groups. I could imagine that there may be some people in Massachusetts who do not have a dog in this fight, but may want to attend the National Convention as a delegate. Were there any people who attended both state conventions on April 23rd and April 24th, sought to be elected as a delegate, and were there any people who were actually elected as a delegate at both conventions? Thank you.
Dr. Moulton, which of the sides would you like to hear from first?
It doesn't matter to me. If I don't know who would have that information. Basically, I want to know if anyone was elected to the, I believe, 20 delegate slate from Massachusetts under both groups.
Yes, there was one person who was elected to both slates.
And who was that?
Actually, there were 3 members that I'm aware of that were elected to both slates. One of them being our newly elected chair, Don Graham. Also, Ann Reed was named a delegate out of the Worcester chapter, who did come and spoke on behalf and in the defense of those who were removed. And also Mr. Christopher Thrasher, who is very recent to Massachusetts, but we are happy to have on our state committee.
Thank you very much for that.
Well, to correct that,
clarify, Don Graham was not selected as a delegate for our group. He was nominated but rejected the nomination. Chris Thrasher is a delegate. Ann Reed has an ex officio position, which she has not taken up yet. She was not actually nominated and elected as a delegate, but our state constitution, or sorry, our bylaws provide that the state committee members have ex officio positions on the delegation.
Thank you.
I see several hands up, but I only see one that is associated with a group, and that is Ms. DeSisto. Dr. Moulton, did you want to hear from her on this?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to put my hand down, but I still do have a question when it's germane.
Madam Chairman, this is Tom Arnold.
Yes.
I don't know how the rest of my fellow JC members feel, but I think that we have heard all the testimony we need to hear on this matter, and that anything else would just keep going deeper and deeper, chasing rabbits and going down rabbit holes. That's just my opinion. I would like to see that this hearing come to a close as soon as possible.
Well, let me ask my other JC members, are there any other questions you feel need to be answered? I'm not hearing any. Now, I know there are several people with their hands raised that I'm not sure actually have been authorized by their group. And Dr. Phillies, I know you have something about ballot access. Could you just email us the JC committee on that, please? And I'm going to ask the other two people with their hands up to do, okay, same thing. I am seeing something in the chat saying that Chris Thatcher is authorized, so I guess we will go ahead and hear from him. And then if there's no other questions from the JC, I think we'll wrap this up.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I would first like to make a statement just as myself, which is to inform the JC that I did attend both conventions. I did ask to be named a delegate to both delegations with the express purpose of trying to facilitate a negotiated end to this conflict. I did inform the Sunday convention of my intentions when I was nominated, as well as when having an opportunity to speak to my nomination. I will now state something that I imagine would be, I guess, would have to do with the Llama board representative side here, and that is that despite my personal belief that the actions of the previous state committee were certainly, I happen to believe that the petition was invalid. However, I do not agree with the actions of the previous state committee. However, I do firmly believe that the purview of this judicial committee is to adjudicate matters regarding the LNC's decisions, and thus I would strongly urge the JC to consider the jurisdictional questions, because the question at hand is, should the ruling of the chair be sustained? And I hope that there will be ample opportunities going forward to figure out a way forward for the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts. But I again encourage the JC to please consider the purview of the committee when making their ruling. Thank you.
And we will. So don't worry about that. Nothing more needs to be said about that. Okay, Okay, I'll ask if there's any other questions that the JC wants to ask.
None here.
Okay. If we don't have any more questions, then we're going to go ahead and start the timer for the interested parties of Llama to go ahead and use the rest of their time, followed by the LNC and followed by I guess you could say the appellants.
Thank you all. We reiterate that the point of this meeting is supposed to be regarding the ruling of the chair. We believe that the motion that was proposed is out of order for all the same reasons cited by the LNC's representative. There are a lot of questions regarding Llama's actions. They have been debated before, and they will continue to be debated, and we can continue to debate them all night should we want to. However, essentially all conversations regarding that during this meeting are speculative. The point should be involving the ruling of the chair, and we maintain that the ruling was correct because of Article 5, Article 5, Section 5. And sorry, yeah. In short, this is supposed to be the Judicial Committee really, we don't feel has jurisdiction over this issue, but should it claim jurisdiction, we believe that the obvious answer is to uphold the ruling of the chair that the motion proposed is out of order. Thank you.
And I have one question from our side to ask, and I would like the Judicial Committee to find the answer if they do not already have it. What does it do to this party? And maybe Mr. Hall, if he's still on the call, can answer. What does it do to this party to have our assets turned to a super PAC? What kind of legal standing and legal jeopardy does that put this party in? I ask the Judicial Committee, and I hope that they will respond.
Does anyone on the Judicial Committee want to respond at this time?
I think she's asking a legal question, and I don't think the JC should attempt to attorneys in this case. Or legal questions that are, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we have any attorneys on our board unless somebody has a degree in fact I'm not aware of.
I'm a lawyer, but I don't want to answer that question.
Okay. All righty. Okay, does that conclude the I guess I should ask maybe another way, is there anyone else in the interested parties of the Llama that wish to speak?
Unless Christopher Thrasher or our chair, Dawn, wish to mention anything else, I believe our position is known.
Okay. Doesn't sound like they are stepping forward, so let's move to the LNC.
Thank you, Dr. Ruert. I don't think much more needs to be said on the issues at hand in this hearing, and so I don't want to repeat myself or others who have already made similar points, other than to say this is obviously a messy situation, and it's understandable that all parties involved want a clean and prompt resolution. But the LNC's position is that the attempt to do this by means of an LNC resolution was in fact out of order. And again, the only question properly before the Judicial Committee in this hearing is whether the chair's ruling, the resolution out of order, should be upheld. Again, under bylaw 8.2D, the Judicial Committee's review of that question is limited to the question of whether the chair's ruling contravenes any bylaw. And it does not appear that the appellants have asserted that the chair's ruling violates any bylaw. And that's the only basis for the Judicial Committee to veto that ruling. So we think that the appellants have not provided grounds for the chair, for the Judicial Committee to overrule the ruling of the chair, and it should therefore be affirmed on that basis. Lastly, because the only issue before the Judicial Committee is whether the ruling of the chair should be vetoed or not. Again, even if the Judicial Committee decides that it should be vetoed, that would be the only appropriate action under the bylaws and under the jurisdiction of the Judicial Committee. So with that, we would just urge the Judicial Committee to affirm the ruling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Okay.
May I say, I'm sorry, sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt Dr. Ruert.
Go ahead.
I should say that there are 3 minutes left on our time, and if the chair, Ms. Beaulieu, wanted to address any points, I would defer my time to her.
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well then let's move on to the appellates.
All right, thank you, Chair Ruert. I'm going to get started, and then I'm going to toss it over to Brody. But again, I'm going to keep it very brief. I just want to kind of speak just from a personal point. Actually, Mr. Newhall said that when I ran for office, they didn't know about me, and I think that just kind of it speaks to the delinquency of the past board. I ran for office in 2017. I was a viable candidate. I ran again for mayor in 2020. 2021, and again, I emailed and I got no response from people until after the election, with apologies. So again, just to reiterate, this isn't a Mises Caucus thing. It's especially for me speaking as the chair of the state. It's just a matter of getting some leadership in there that's going to show some competency and some gumption, and want to get to work to fight for some liberty in the state. So with that, I'll pass it over to Brody.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I would just like to thank the Judicial Committee for their time. It's been months since our group has been heard. The last time we've been heard by another group is the LNC meeting. So I thank you for taking the time to hear our case. I can say that, and I can speak for some of the people who were allegedly kicked out on January 10th. We're here to get work done, and we just want our voices heard. We're the open group. We have attempted reconciliation, and I'd like to point out to the Judicial Committee that nearly 300 national members signed this appeal. I think that speaks volumes to how interested the members are in our case, and how the members of the National Party would like the LNC to hear this motion out. That's all that we ask, that they at least hear the motion out. I'm very disappointed that the LNC will real leadership. So I ask that the Judicial Committee take real leadership on this matter. This matter is urgent. We've been waiting for 4 months, 3 or 4 months at this point, to get things moving along. So I would ask that the Judicial Committee keep that in mind, that we've been waiting, and that's this matter is urgent. We do not want to leave this in the hands of the Reno delegation, because that is unfair for the Reno delegation to take on this load when we have leaders in the LNC and the JC to help us out with these matters. And I will yield the rest of my time to Karen Ann Harlos to comment on some of the questions that have arisen at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brody and the Judicial Committee. I just have to say, in listening to some of these things, other people have texted this to me, and it came to my mind as well, is so much of this brings to mind, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Except for in this time, just substitute in Mises Caucus for Communist Party. That is so anti-libertarian, I don't even know what to say. I would encourage the Judicial Committee to listen to the prior LNC meeting in which Massachusetts was discussed. I think Chris Crawford was very, very candid about their motivations, and I think it would be very, very eye-opening. Also, there was an assertion made earlier that what I believe to not, we'll just say the old Llama board, for expediency's sake, tried in an unbiased way to reconcile this at their alleged state convention. I don't think it's very unbiased when members who were involved in the purge passed out a dossier completely defaming people without giving them a chance to respond. And in fact, some of the screenshots in the dossier weren't even from people that were part of the purge. It was a great guilt by association. I originally did not intend upon doing rebuttal, and though it might not be technically improper, I have to say, as one of the member signatories of the petition, I find it at least at the minimum very bad optics for the money that is being paid by nearly 300 members for an attorney for the LNC to be used against the members. Just something seems unseemly there. It could be technically correct. Lots of things are technically correct. But I decided to speak because we're dealing a lot of times with some brand new people in the party. They're not lawyers, they're not paralegals, they're not parliamentarians. They're unsophisticated. And that's why I got involved, because I saw injustice being done. Now I don't dispute Mr. Hall or Mr. Newell, actually. What's before the JC right now is whether or not to sustain, to overturn the sustainment of the ruling of the chair. And to say that we did not bring an argument, I'm not going to call it disingenuous. I would just say it vastly misunderstood our petition. Our argument is the JC's decision in the Delaware case. And oddly enough, that wasn't mentioned once in the LNC's response. Our argument for why the chair's ruling was incorrect, most of it, I could have just cribbed everything from the majority opinion from the Judicial Committee. When there are two possible interpretations of bylaws, the one that doesn't render the rest of the bylaws absurd is the correct interpretation. The bylaws mention in over a dozen places the way the LNC needs to know who the correct leadership is in order to do its duty to its affiliate. If it is presented with credible claims of two competing leaderships, there's just one party. I think most of us agree on that, though there could be some technicalities here. But just like was said in Delaware, the LNC then has a duty, an obligation under its own bylaws to make sure they are dealing with the correct leadership. Now, the LNC could throw its hands up and say, the evidence isn't clear. But they haven't even tried. All they've done is abdicated their duty, and in fact have taken a side, because the chair went and spoke at one of these conventions. They have not at all been neutral in this matter, which would have been appreciated if they actually were. So the jurisdiction under the member portion of the appeal is absolutely clear. Contrary to Mr. Newell, this isn't merely procedural, perhaps because Lama operates under the democratic rules of order that he doesn't understand, that even the LNC doesn't dispute. This is in fact a decision of the LNC, an appeal of which is under the JC's jurisdiction. The LNC has conceded that point, so there's no point in me arguing it. But the same basic fact pattern is happening here as happened in Delaware. You have two sets of people who allegedly are successors, or one group is claiming to be successors pursuant to the bylaws, just like they would be at an annual convention, except this happened to be a special convention. If it is not an abridgment of the autonomy of the affiliate to recognize a new board elected at a state convention, it is not an abridgment of the autonomy of an affiliate to recognize a new board elected at a special convention as allowed by their own constitution. It's just, though, this is one of those situations. I'm trying to think of that Beatles song where the marching band refused to yield the field. Well, somebody needs to decide who's entitled to the field here, and the LNC is elected to make these hard decisions. And I understand not always agreeing with judicial committee more than anybody, judicial committee decisions, but I recognize that the final say until convention rests with the judicial committee. But ultimately, it should never go there. The LNC should do its job and make the hard decision, not just summarily rule it out of order, which then makes the rest of the bylaws absolutely absurd. And since the LNC has decided, just like it decided to in Delaware, just not do anything and throw its hands up, unfortunately, it now rests upon the elected judicial committee, who's elected to make the hard decisions. So I call upon the judicial committee to tell the LNC that it is their duty to at least examine this. I'm not getting into the merits of the motion because the motion isn't before the judicial committee. The motion has not yet been decided by the LNC, but it needs to be. That is the job they were elected to do. And in fact, recognizing successor boards and interest is honoring the autonomy of an affiliate, and not doing so is violating the autonomy of an affiliate. I call upon this judicial committee to recognize its own precedent from this very year. The LNC offered absolutely no argument which distinguished this issue from the issues in Delaware as far as two competing boards. Not at all, which seems to be a tacit admission that it's pretty well known because they've used the LNC business list to say that they don't agree with the Delaware decision. And okay, again, I commiserate with not agreeing with the JC decision, but the decision is what the decision is. And I call upon this judicial committee to not confuse members as to what their rights are and to follow its own precedent, because otherwise members don't know what duties are. And I do think the right decision was made in Delaware. And I ask for the judicial committee to follow it. So in closing, and I'll actually have some time left, that's unusual for me. I know that the JC has said it's going to allow a week for supplemental briefs. I beg the JC, convention is coming up. The delegates deserve guidance, even if the delegates end up overturning whatever guidance they get, because they can overturn anything. The delegates at convention can do almost anything they want, but they deserve to see their leadership actually make leadership decisions. So I urge this judicial committee, this is a very simple issue, to make a decision this weekend so that this motion can be heard. And then if subsequent appeals are required, there will be sufficient time for it. I believe, whether it was intentional or not, because I can't read people's mind, that the other interested parties have been running out the clock. And I implore you, please expeditiously make a decision in this matter. And I thank you. And I am so sorry you've had to hear so many appeals this year. And I look forward to seeing most of you at convention. Have an awesome night.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harlos. Okay, since we have heard from all three groups, and they have either, actually no one ran up the clock totally, so congratulations. And I'd like to say for all the people who are attending this, and there's over 100 people here today, you can file an amicus brief. The JC will be meeting before that to start our discussions, but we are going to accept briefs until next Thursday at 11:59 p.m. And I don't think I said what time zone that was, so I'm going to say Eastern time, because I think most of the people are there. I see that Miss Matson has her hand up, so go ahead, Miss Matson, and go ahead and say what you want to say.
I just wanted to know, I fully understand the JC chair wishes to give people plenty of time to weigh in, but perhaps the fact that we have scheduled deliberations to begin on this coming Sunday afternoon, I think that timing argues that people should send their amicus briefs prior to then for the most impact.
Yes, I will. Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Matson. And, you know, I try to give enough time because I know that not everybody's a writer and you want to put it as best you can. But Ms. Matson makes a great point. We are going to be starting our deliberations on Sunday. I don't know that we'll finish or not. And of course, we have to write an opinion too. And so the sooner you get the amicus briefs in, the better. We've tried to be generous with the time, but as Ms. Harlos pointed out, clock is ticking on this issue. So the faster we can get your input, the better. And of course, if you send an amicus brief, you can send it to jc@lp.org or judicial@lp.org. Either one of those will work. And also, when you send one, we will distribute it to all of the interested parties, most of whom you have heard from today. So I want to thank you all for attending. I know that it's tough to sit through a couple hours of this, especially since sometimes it may seem like we are not on point, but we like to cover as much as we can. And of course, you'll be hearing from us as we issue a written opinion. So I want to thank you all for your participation today. I want to wish you a great night and a great weekend. And I look forward to reading whatever briefs that the membership cares to send us. Thank you all. And thank you, Mr. Harris, for your help tonight.
Just for formality's sake, I'll move that we adjourn the hearing.
Second.
And I will ask for votes to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
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 The ayes have it.
You're all in row.
And okay, well, Alicia, I thought I saw your hand up, but you put it down. So
Yeah, it was just another way for me to vote because
got it.
I hear voices on Zoom.
Okay. And I will send a reminder and information out to the Judicial Committee for our Sunday meeting.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, per our usual. Oh, they just kicked us out. They kicked us out. So that was the JC hearing for the ruling on the motion of the chair and all that stuff. What did everyone think? That was fun. That was interesting. I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna. I somehow. Well, let me just say this. I don't think it's gonna go the way we want it to go. I could be wrong. I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat? Which way do you think they're gonna rule? I suspect that this is gonna have to be decided in Reno by the delegates. And actually, I mean, I honestly think that if it, I mean, if it's going to be decided in Reno, then it's going to go the way we want it to go. So it's like, whatever. But I understand why they wanted to try this route. I just think I think the legitimate llama board, which is the ones that, the ones for people that got kicked out and then they went and had their own special convention and they formed their own thing. I think that they didn't show up. I'm sorry. I have to say it. I think that they didn't really show up. I was expecting more. And Karen Ann, of course, because Karen Ann is our goddess, she showed up. But I mean, man, I was really, I think you guys need to be better prepared. I do. I think you need to come with more fire. I think you need, even Tara, who was annoying as shit and probably did more harm to their case than she did good. And frankly, you know what? Frankly, the legitimate llamas need to thank Tara DeSisto because Tara did more harm to her own case than I think anyone else did. I think if Tara had just shut her mouth and kept quiet and not interjected, things would have gone a whole lot better for her side. I think that she did more damage than the ones that we liked. So we'll see, though. I mean, I think that, ultimately, if it goes to the delegates in Reno, the legitimate llama is going to prevail in terms of who they're seating. But man, this is going to be a lesson for people. Be prepared, be fiery, show up with a solid case on the merits of the question. But it was still kind of entertaining to watch. And we'll see what happens. All right, guys, I've been streaming for about 2.5 hours. If you enjoyed the fact that I brought you this stream tonight, please mount that like button on the way out the door. I will be doing happy hour on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke at 5 p.m. tomorrow. For those who don't know, happy hour is a time where I pick out a woke training and we have some beers and we watch it and we make fun of them ruthlessly. So that will be on youtube.com/activelyunwoke tomorrow. And by the way, I'm just going to shamelessly shill for a second. If you've made it this far. So guys, did you know that apparently the audio version of my book, Actively Unwoke, got sabotaged by a woke leftist narrator? I'm not making this shit up. So the audio version, so my book was supposed to drop 2 days ago. The audio and the print version got delayed because of supply chain issues, but the audio version dropped on Tuesday. And then we were all confronted with the fact that the audio version of my book sucked. Well, don't be too disappointed if you were one of the people that got the audio book, because it turns out the reader was a woke leftist. We have now confirmed the woman who read my audiobook was a woke leftist. This has been addressed. I have been apologized to profusely, and the audiobook will be being recorded. So with me reading it, because god damn it, you can't trust anyone. But isn't it funny that I was the victim of woke sabotage in the recording of my own audiobook? So if you've enjoyed this stream and you want to help me out and you want to support the work I'm doing in fighting back against woke insanity all over the place, and you know, you can still get the audiobook. You guys can still go on Audible right now and hear the preview of what this horrible fucking woman did to my book. But if you like, just again, shamelessly shilling, if you want to support the work I'm doing, you can order the book on activelyunwoke.com. A new audiobook will be coming expeditiously now that we have handled the situation. So don't worry about that. You can also get the print edition. You can get the digital version. I think it's a great book. Obviously, the leftist who read it the first time did not think it was a great book, but that's all right. See, we caught them in the act again, every single time. You can't make this shit up, man. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Take care. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon.